Many thanks for staying with us here on Opposing Views, right here on MX24. And like I keep saying, this show is a very, very interactive one. You can join on all our digital media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even on YouTube. You could watch this very program live there. If you want to be a part of the conversation, mind you, today we are talking about attrition in Parliament. I keep saying there's a lot of talk about what really is required of our MPs, whether or not they even do what is expected of them, and why it's even a big deal if we vote them out. So if you have thoughts on this, please do well to get them to us. The WhatsApp number is 059-289-6001, 059-289-6001. Pretty interesting, pretty interesting, some of the things that are going to happen on the show today. But let me quickly introduce our first guest who is in studio with us already. He's a man who wears many hats. I'm sure some of you may or may not have been under him in one department or another. He used to be a political science lecturer. I don't know if he still is though, but he wears, like I said, a lot of hats now. He's the Chief Director of the Ministry for Parliamentary Affairs. Dr. Evans Agridakon is one of our guests today on the show. Doc, many thanks for agreeing to do this today.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be around.
Do you still lecture?
Not in Legon,
not in
full time, but we still engage in some lecturing somehow.
Okay.
And because the program, the major thing that I do in the ministry also dovetail into some serious academic work.
Okay.
So
that's good.
The value is the same.
The value is indeed the same. Thank you for that. Okay. Also, a few other people will be joining us, and I'll be introducing them as they do join in the conversation. If you have already seen the flyer out, I'm sure you have a fair idea what the issue is and your views. Again, you know, as we usually do, we do set our cameras out to get some views on the subject at hand. We got some pretty interesting answers from a lot of people. When we spoke to them about attrition in Parliament, whether or not it's even a problem, whether it's an issue, is it such a big deal as we make it seem? Here are some answers for you.
Blame the MP as such. I think the Chief Executive are supposed to be blamed. So I don't see anything going on in my constituency, especially in my area. For me, especially there, I've not even heard him speaking in Parliament before.
He's on course, doing what is required of him, but it's not all that perfect. So we are hoping for the best. His action on the ground, talking about roads, yeah.
There are a lot to be done in my area. My area like this, water is a problem, and the roads are very, very bad. So lot to be done. So we are not satisfied at all. You know, the previous government has done a lot before they came. So I'm not a partisan anything, but according to my decision, they've done a lot before he came. So I don't know how much he has contributed to the development of our area.
As for hospital, there is hospital. But no water, the roads are bad. These are the main things. He's supposed to do that because he's the mouthpiece of the area.
He's putting in his best. I can't say he's not doing much, but what he's doing, I think there's much can still be done. That's what I'm saying. And me as a youth, my focus is based on youths because we are the future leaders. And if we are not having much for ourselves, I think we are not heading anywhere.
Interesting comments there from some people we spoke to and sampled views from. They don't seem to be very enthused about a lot of the work of some MPs, but there are some more views which we'll be bringing to you subsequently on the show. At this point, though, I would like to introduce our other guest who is joining us live now via Zoom, Kwabena Kyenkyenhene, who is a former member of Parliament for the Adentan constituency. Mr. Dwasai, good morning. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Great. Maybe let me just take your quick thoughts on this. Okay, even before I ask that question, I want to know, you've been out of the parliamentary scene for a while. Do you wish to get back in anytime soon?
No, not at all.
Oh, you're done?
Well, it's not in any of my immediate plans yet, so.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. All right. So we'll be taking some more views from you on this very subject matter. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this once again. Doc, let's come to you. You did hear the views of a number of people on whether or not it's even such a big deal to have members stay in Parliament all of this while, and we're not even seeing so much of them. Is this a logical assessment?
Yeah, thank you very much for that important question. It speaks to the larger issue of governance and the difficulty that we have in trying to build a capacity, not just of our institutions, but even of our individuals, the citizenry. High level of education is important for democracy to grow, but there are only few democracies in the world where you also have high, literacy, illiteracy rate or lack of education, for instance. You need, as you develop, democratically and build the structures, you would require a certain level of appreciation of what is it that the institutions do. Because I have argued time and again that when the citizens become, they are part and parcel of the processes, and they appreciate what is it that the institution does, they even become sympathetic evaluators. So the views that have been expressed clearly indicate that we have a lot of work to do. One, in letting our people appreciate what is it that the institution does. Two, by upping our game by way of enhancing the capacity of the state to deliver. Because when the state deliver and we go past the survival levels, i.e. where to sleep, what to eat, what to wear, these are the fundamentals of life. When we move away from this and move into what I normally refer to as the challenge of life, when we have actually gone past the survival level, then we will begin to appreciate what is it that the state has to do in terms of what specific things that the individuals and the state institutions ought to do. A number of issues have come to the fore.
Okay.
For instance, speaking in Parliament, one contributor argued that the MP has not been speaking in Parliament. Yeah. It speaks to a larger issue of the issue of what we call Parliament. Parliament is from the word parler, to speak. So it is not for nothing that we refer to Parliament as a congress of opinions. So when you become an MP, part of your role is to aggregate the interests of your constituents and articulate same on the floor of Parliament. So you would expect that Parliament itself, as I said, is a congress of opinion, is a boiling point of ideas, and therefore you expect the MP also to articulate. So it has a deliberative function, and that's why when you look at the debates, etc. So it is important that even in the choice of who leads you, you are also interested in somebody who can also articulate, the concerns of your various constituents. Because lobbying within any democracy is fundamental. And how do you lobby? Sometimes it's also by engaging the critical actors and making sure that they articulate, they appreciate what is it that you do or your constituents wants. The number of developmental issues have also been raised as to whether indeed the MP is a real person who should facilitate development of the area. There are some development agents that must be brought to the fore quickly. One will be the district assemblies. And when I say a district assembly, it's a concept district assembly. But we have the district assemblies, we have the metropolitan assemblies, and then we have the municipal assemblies based on the size of the population, etc., and the area and so on. And so, what is it that the district assembly has to do? That must also be brought to the fore. Then it is also important that you are also looking at the central government ministries, like the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs, etc. There are instances where they can intervene direct in certain areas of development. For instance, if the Ministry of Education says that because we want to deal with a critical issue of lack of infrastructure with regards to secondary education, let us intervene directly in some constituencies. So they may move to Agona West, where I come from, for instance, and say that let us build maybe 10 schools. So that is a direct intervention from the central government. Sometimes outside what do you call it? What is it that the district assembly does, and so on. Of course, the Ministry of Health does that, and so like the chips, or maybe the Ministry of Special Initiative will say that let us build some chip compounds in some remote areas, so they can access, some health facilities. Of course, there are also instances where the president may visit an area. The chiefs will appeal to him that when you travel along this road, you observe our road. you saw our market. These are, infrastructure in a very deplorable state. The president, as you have come, say something as you normally would say something. So the president will be, encouraged to make some intervention. Sometimes he will maybe have a tete-a-tete with his finance minister. Very close.
Look at
what is it that what is possible,
okay,
and what is feasible, and what is it that we can do within the
so if I gather
so these are all development,
I see two key things here: facilitating development in the various constituencies,
precisely,
and then speaking in parliament.
Precisely,
it's such a big deal.
These are critical. It's in recent times that we're not seeing this major charge. For instance, you understand, when we actually transitioned to the Fourth Republic, one major things people were looking for was whether indeed the MP was speaking in Parliament. But I think we've moved beyond that. The conversation is not just speaking in Parliament, because trust me, there are some MPs who may not necessarily be speaking on the floor, but they are very critical actors in the work that Parliament does.
Okay.
And let me just give you one statement by Woodrow Wilson that will settle this matter. He said that Parliament in the committee rooms is Parliament at work, but Parliament in session is Parliament at public exhibition. So when you see the debates, I will tell you on authority that most of the issues have been settled. So they are just for the cameras. Really? A lot of discussions have gone behind the scenes. Those who are really critical in the nurturing, in the crafting of the laws, don't normally speak much. But they are the critical actors behind most of the laws that we craft.
Let me quickly rope in Kojo Edwasare, who is with us via Zoom. Okay. Mr. Edwasare, again, two key things here, which Dr. Agridaku mentions. One has to do with facilitating development as a legislator, and also speaking in Parliament. I do recall you speak quite often in Parliament, and also you doing a lot of things in the Adentan constituency. Of course, I am from that very constituency, so I do see a number of things. So, what happened? Why did your people then decide that, you know what, it's okay, Mr. Swagger, move on for somebody else to join us?
Oh, well, good afternoon to your viewers, and then the panelists, my co-panelists.
Yeah.
Well, I'll deal with the personal question first. The reason I decided not to contest Adenta, it's public knowledge. I think there comes a time when certain pressures can compel one to take certain decisions. And I think at that point in time, I just thought that that was the best decision to take. And I don't think I've regretted taking that decision. In as much as that 4-year term that I got in Parliament was one that I can say offered me a good experience in my political career. I got the opportunity to also bring or lobby for development in my constituency, which is public knowledge also, especially in the area where at the point in time, water had become a big issue. I remember having a conversation with the late professor, the late president, Professor Mills. And the question he asked me at the time was what I thought. At the time he was the flag bearer. So he asked me what was the 3 key projects that I think Adenta needed. And I told them 1, water, 2, water, 3, water.
Yeah.
I mean, that was to just emphasize the fact that water was a key issue in the constituency. And so when he visited us on his whistle stops, he made the assurance. He gave the assurance to the people who had thronged the campaign ground, or let's say the rally ground, that this was what I told him when I met him regarding the issues of Adenta. I said water, water, water. And today we all can bear with the fact that at least the area Adenta has seen an improvement in water supply. The
Significant
challenge we are
improvement,
having
I must
right
say.
now is the fact that developments around the Adenta constituency has expanded so hugely that the adjoining communities are all tapping into the very source that is providing water for the Adenta constituency. So now it looks like we have to ration the water for all of us. But at least it's better than what it used to be, because the intervention at the time was the Bong Water Expansion Project, which took place in 2010. So these are some of the things that sometimes, as a member of parliament or somebody in that space, you can bring to bear on your community. The other thing has to do with roads. You can tell there are some road networks in Adenta that saw some upgrading. I don't want to bore you with the areas. Again, the same Professor Mills called me and asked me to bring 8 key link roads. But the major one that I remember, which was quite huge, is this one we call the boundary road between the American House to the Medina cemetery area.
Yeah.
That's that particular road. It used to be a very terrible road at the time. And I remember he calling me to ask for 8 roads, and I included that particular one. And today, it's history. That road is one of the busiest link roads from Medina through Ashale-Butwe. So these are all parts of the work of a member of parliament, alongside the contributions on the floor of parliament, and also usually at the select committee meetings.
Yes. So you are just reaffirming the pointers raised by Dr. Evans Agridako here, and it seems to make a lot of sense. But the question now is, with you leaving Parliament, of course, it didn't come overnight, you getting all of these things. I'm glad you even make mention of the boundary road, because that's where our office is located. And I always see, I see the road now, and I compare it to some years back, and quite a lot has gone into it. So I know in getting such a thing done, the kind of lobbying that must have gone into wherever, it's quite significant. You may have gotten some experiences in getting things done, achieving results for your constituents. Parliament must have perhaps put in some money in training you in one area or the other. So for you then to now just leave, will that not affect the work of Parliament? Because that has been the argument, that we invest so much in the people take so much time to settle. Now once they do settle, then they find a way to either leave or are kicked out. I've asked you one question, but even before you respond to that, let me ask, how long did it take you to settle in Parliament when you went in as a first MMP?
Well, it all depends on who and who become your friends.
Okay.
People go to Parliament and they isolate themselves. When I say isolate, it means that they hardly want to be part of whatever is going on. They just go and join in the plenary work, and that's it. But when you go to Parliament and you really want to have an impact, what you do is that you take your time and observe for a while, and if possible, at least after about the first, let me say, session, which is usually about 3 months, because when we are sworn in January, the Easter break, there's always that first 2 weeks that you go to Parliament, and then they break for some orientation program. When we return from the orientation program, the next break will be the Easter break. So at least by that Easter break, you would have known who and who are the focal ones on the floor. And it's up to you to navigate your way towards some of them and try to ask questions. And that's what I did.
Okay.
And Honorable Bagbin was my mentor, I would say. I mean, I always went to him and asked questions and got a lot of support from him, because at the time he was the minority leader when we were, the majority leader when we were in Parliament. So I got a lot of support from him. He also passed me on to some other people who were not members of Parliament, who also helped me, clerks of Parliament, who also helped me here and there, give me information as much as, and asked me to throng the library as much as, or as often as I can, you know, because that's where I get to, you know, receive a lot of information or read of things that have happened in the past and best practices and so on. At that time, we didn't have offices, because they hadn't finished the
so if I understand you correctly, it takes a first-time MP between 3 and 4 months to settle in, roughly.
Well, I'm talking about me, because I made a certain effort. You can be there for 4 years and be adamant, and that's all that will happen.
Oh, really?
You
4 years, and you wouldn't still have settled in?
Yes, of course.
Wow.
Yes, I mean, there are people in Parliament as of now who one can say are just, you know, passing through. They don't have any role. I mean, their presence cannot be felt in anything. They don't add up, and they don't subtract anything. Okay, so
interesting.
It takes your personal effort, because you see, especially when it comes to when laws have to be made. Usually, you find very few people in the plenary who are interested in making those laws, because over the years they have taken interest, because it's a very boring process.
But it's one of your primary functions anyway.
Boring. Sorry?
It's one of the primary functions of an MP anyway.
It is. But that's what I'm saying.
Yet still a number of people who come to Parliament are not even interested in that.
It's not as if they are not interested. It's a serious job. It takes a lot of, you know, you need to study a lot. You need to read a lot. You need to have insight, you know, before you can make contributions. You know, making laws, you need to be very observant. You need to know what to mean, cross your T's and dot your I's and all those things. You need to have your construction, your English construction on point. You know, so it really doesn't attract a lot of people. But for those who take time and take the trouble to stay on, let me say, I always give them, you know, so these are people who keep going to Parliament every now and then, and they are remembered for that purpose. Somebody like Honorable Inusa Hussaini is one such person, especially when it comes to when the laws are supposed to be made. I mean, himself and
you mentioned a very critical point. I want to take the views of Dr. Ivan Sagredako on that very point. That, Doc, and I heard you comment when he mentioned that for him it took him about 3 months to settle in, and for others it takes a while longer. He went on to suggest sometimes even for a whole 4-year term people would not have settled. You are saying sometimes it even takes longer?
Yeah, it does. I mean, some have said that experience makes people perfect.
Okay.
I would say that experience does not always make man perfect, or practice does not always make man perfect. But lack of practice will always lead to a degeneration. Okay. That's a fact. He mentioned some names. If we are talking about Alban Sumana-Baben, we are talking about my own boss, Honorable Osechi Mensah-Bonsu, who is the majority leader of government business and the Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, where I perform as a chief director. And if you even single out these two individuals, these are not men of today. In fact, they are not even men of yesterday. I dare say that they are men the day before yesterday. They have gone through the mill. they have learned the art and science of lawmaking. They learned the ropes. So you need to really appreciate the basic reference documents. For instance, the standing orders. You need to master the standing orders, which is really will be the rules of engagement in Parliament. You need to appreciate what is it that the Constitution does, because the Constitution is the foundational document upon which we are governed. I mean, that is what establishes the relationship between us, the state, the people, between the individuals, etc., between the various institutions and so on. The powers, the functions, the various dynamics are all crafted by the Constitution, and an existing body of laws that we have, which are, of course, consistent with the Constitution. These things you must have them. There must also be the desire to learn, and that I'm happy Honorable Swagger, raised that in people are talking about mentors, that we should have mentors, but the mentee must agree to be mentored. Yeah. That's fundamental. So sometimes you may have somebody who is uninterested. It can't be bothered, and therefore such a person, you simply cannot build a person's capacity. You understand? So the dynamics are that you need to have certain, ingredients in place. You need to have an individual who is trainable. You understand? Human resource executive will tell you that it's not everybody who is trainable. There are some people, you multiply them by 10 years, they don't get wiser. So the person ought to be trainable. The person must have the desire to be trained. The person must have the basics that will help you to even nurture him. And as I said, the key ingredient will be the interest that you yourself will show. And that is where the issue of the attrition then comes in. So you realize that the trajectories that you need to travel in order to build that capacity is it takes some time. It takes a
I'll get you to hold on to those thoughts now. You've mentioned a few names, Abambagbin, Yusuf Husseini, and all of them.
Abanda,
a number of these people,
and all those people.
A number of these people will no longer be serving in Parliament next term.
Yeah, they won't.
What kind of impact will this have on the work of Parliament? We'll get to that right after this break. You're still watching Opposing Views here on MX24. My name is Kwabena Kyenkyenhene Boateng. Like I keep saying, this is a very interactive show. Quite a number of your messages have come in, which we'll be putting to our guests here. But if you have a few more, please do well to share them with us on 059-289-6001. 059-289-6001. We'll be back after this.
They say it's the little things that count. The things we shouldn't take for granted. Like being able to have a warm shower. Oh, how about some tea, my dear? And cooking with ease. How about being able to invite friends over so confidently? Sharing the food, just chilling over a few drinks, watching movies. It's just, what's the word? Comfortable. I could go on and on and on and on, but we both know what I'm driving at. It's life's affordable luxuries, and it's the heartbeat of every home. It's simple. It's NASCO. Bring home happiness.
Hello, viewers. I'm feeling very frustrated and bored in Sambulai. I'm very happy. If you don't understand, don't worry, because myself, I don't understand. In this addition, Vodafone Ghana has now made it possible to send money from Vodafone Cash to all network free. We will cross over to our senior reporter for more details.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm standing in front downtown. I'm learning to make a vlog. I'm not funny as you said. Vodafone, I'm not quite said. Utimisani Emily Dutopia, Echo all the network. I will check up there. Mitisi Montezo, Diamond Falcon.
Fifia, Matendo says, Jordan, you put charges, Manome. Two, Nebro, charges on your wumlo, at the Hamonyo. A beer says, Jordan, charges or Clandan.
Handing on me, Fanny no me. Instead, I mean, charges me no charges. I met G. Naka charges say when we know money can pay BP. Oh, I need Vodafone. Oh,
for me, I do a lot of online transactions. I just guess here. See, the excitement for me is that I get to save a lot on Vodafone cash.
Please put me down.
I'm so excited. I can now send money to all networks without any charges.
Me ye jediniba. A bribia sesame chia majuma ye fokan. Sika mi chia se charges no. And do so do. Nansu say dear. Me the Vodafone cash.
Sending money on Vodafone Cash to all networks is now free. Send any amount of money as many times as you like to all networks for free. Dial *110# now to send money.
Any amount for Masumo. Studio 2. Put him in car. And yeah, Muso.
This is the red news. Apologize.
The future is exciting. Ready?
Looking really good.
Many thanks for staying with us here on Opposing Views, right here on MX24. Again, this show is live on all our digital platforms. You can do well to share to the various people who are on your friends list and in your various groups so that they can also make their points known. Quite a number of your messages have come in, which I'll be reading to you shortly, but we went off on that point where we were speaking about attrition in Parliament and the possible impact it may have. I have a tall list of people who are no longer going to be in Parliament this term. I'll be sharing that with you in a bit. But I've heard the views of the majority leader, Osei Mensah Bonsu, on this. Quite heavy views, and he seems to make some very, very solid points. Now those views are being re-echoed by the minority leader. Let's take a listen to him.
It's largely because, one, Parliament itself has invested hugely in training members of Parliament, but is not able to protect them. We are exposed to the competitive democratic politics of the political parties, which regrettably
isn't that an advantage of democracy?
What advantage?
Competition for, the best person to win the seat. Let the people
Democracy is just encouraging and facilitating corruption in Ghana. Where do the money come from? Where the MPs get the money to buy the votes? Where does it come from? And we must be interested in it in the
What's the solution? Shouldn't we elect them? What's the solution?
I think that the political parties must review the selection process of members of Parliament. For instance, if I'm a minority leader or majority leader, I should be able to say that I need this caliber of MPs. I mean, imagine me working in Parliament tomorrow without the Honorable Yile Chire, Honorable Yunus Hussein. These are very experienced as
so you think the parties should choose the
legislation.
MPs?
They are thorough and they are deep and they've studied the subject matter. So it's not just about replacing the member of Parliament. You must replace him with something that is qualitative. But I agree with you that it's a consequence of competitive adversarial democratic
if you're being overly selective, you're also denying new entrants the opportunity to come in.
But new entrants, you be interested in Parliament where we are. Very soon we'll move to consideration stage of law. He will tell you.
But you were all once
less
new.
Than 5-10 MPs are interested in it.
That was Haruna Idrisu, the minority leader, in a conversation with Noon Falong, telling us a bit about attrition and its possible impact to the work of Parliament. Remember that very interview. The full version of it is going to air this night at 8:30 p.m. right here on MX24. Do make a date to watch that full, very, very compelling interview with Noon Falong. It's a very interesting piece. I've seen it and I think you should make time for it. But let me come back to the studio now and get the thoughts of Dr. Evans Agridako on the possible causes of this. Because clearly this is a problem. Yes. But what causes it? And how do we deal with it? So let's start with the causes.
Yeah, thank you very much, KKB. You recognize that as we speak, the current parliament, the attrition rate is about 50%.
50%?
But MPP has as many as 89 fresh MPs now in parliament who, you know, I mean, the 7th parliament of the 4th Republic, 89 of them. Of course, I mean, let us also get it straight and get it clear that we are also dealing with a concept of representation.
Yeah.
Any group of people have the right to decide who should represent them. That is what our constitution states. And we are not here to undermine that concept at all. But we also have to understand that democracy everywhere is a guided system. It's not an open sesame that anything goes. Otherwise, we won't say that you ought to be 18 years and above and of a sound mind before you vote. We won't say that you have to be 21 years before you can be an MP. We won't say you have to be 40 years before you can become president. And apart from that, there are other, you know, qualification criteria among others. And so, if you guide a system in a manner, in a particular way, you can have a certain outcome, a certain specific outcome, depending on what is it that we do. I've always said that even organizations are a product of their decisional history. So the decision that your management takes today will shape your outlook going into 2021 and beyond. So that's very critical for us to appreciate. And so if you come into parliament, your employers are in the constituency. So a number of factors come to play, looking at attrition. There's a concept we call elite circulation. That concept simply says that if you're able to move the elite around a little bit, it gives people the opportunity to also join the elite in decision making and so on. Okay. And that stabilizes the political system largely. If you constrain the political space, people begin to dream bad dreams and they can destabilize the political system. But what is also true, but less obvious, is that when you allow that, you know, circulation to go on too much, then you are likely going to recycle some materials who will not actually enhance the public good and the national interest, largely, because they will not be deep. What is important is that enthusiasm alone doesn't grow cassava. There are some people who may be very enthusiastic, but when you give them the cassava sticks, they will turn them upside down. You need to have the know-how to be able to grow the cassava so you can reap some good cassava subsequently. Now, coming back to the specifics, one major difficulty that we have experienced, and the Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs has put this on the public agenda, is excessive monetization of our political system.
Monetization of politics.
In fact, we are almost promoting monocracy. And the monetization of the system is undermining the institution. And I would say that if we are unable to tackle this problem headlong, the talk about the fact that we want to deal with corruption, we should forget it. It will be a pipe dream, or it will be a pipe dream. Let me put it that way. Why would you say monetization is a problem? The political parties themselves, their internal party dynamics, their internal party primaries, among others, portend danger for this country, because the fact that they have constrained even participation in the primaries, you know, enhances this whole business of monetization. And that monetization is like who can pay. So if I have to pay in order to be elected, then how do you exact accountability from me when I'm elected? So when I have spent so much, it has cost me a fortune. And Afrobarometer and others, you know, surveys will tell you that it cost them a fortune to even win the primaries. Now, when they have gone back to Parliament, having spent that much, these people must recoup their investment. They are not Father Christmas. They ought to recoup their investment. And when they have to recoup their investment, they also need to restock for the battles ahead. You understand? So it's not as if they are recouping their investment and it's all good. You still have to, you know, as I said, build an arsenal that will help you
in the
next election. So that undermines.
Because you have mentioned this, let me take the views of Kojo Dwasari, who is still online with us. Mr. Dwasari, did you hear the point Dr. Evans Agridaku made? Monocracy, is that such a big deal for you? Is it one of the reasons why perhaps you have chosen that, you know what, I don't think this is even worth it, let me stay somewhere?
Well, I wouldn't say so. Unfortunately, he's right. It looks like... Am I still on air?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Oh, okay. Because my link has gone off a bit. Anyway, I'm sure once you can hear me, let me continue. It appears that monocracy, as he's saying, is rearing its head into the aspect of primaries that we hold usually. And I think an attempt by the NDC, I think in 2015 or so, was made to have this electoral college system to try and regularize that particular, or to cure that particular mischief. Unfortunately, it wasn't properly handled. The fact that everybody who had a card could vote for or in that primaries. Unfortunately, the way it was handled, there was a little bit of challenge with the names of people who eventually got to vote. And that also came up with its own attendant challenges. So we had to go back to the delegate system all over again. And usually it is that aspect of it that brings about this monocracy, because it turns out to become the highest bidder, the one who is able to pay more, and the one who is able to, push for other freebies to be shared among the delegates. But it also ends up not bringing the kind of quality personnel that one would need, especially in Parliament. Because
how much did you spend on your election? Give us a fair idea how much it cost you to win the Adenta seat.
Well, like I said, during that time, it didn't cost me that much, because at that time we didn't have this monocracy thing up to the level where we
still give us a fair idea.
Those days, we didn't, it was just transport we had to give to the people. We didn't, some people chose to camp, some of the delegates.
So say something around, say what, 50,000 cities, 100,000 cities? How much?
Well, I don't, this is 2008 we are talking about. I cannot remember everything that happened. The whole election cost me about 300,000.
300,000 cities
at that time. So what?
And this was in 2008.
That is from the start. Yes, I started in 2007 when I won the primaries, all the way to election day. So all that period, I spent about 300,000. And usually, by the time you are done and exiting, I don't even know if you can make up that amount to take back home, because usually once you enter Parliament, the first month or so, you are paid a certain amount for your accommodation and all of that. After some months, you get your car loan. This is about the two major, money that you get. The rest is nothing to really write.
So it's not really
about.
that profitable anyway. Yet still we have so many people clamoring to be parliamentarians.
Yeah, that's why I said that those of them who don't know, they look at the fact that if you are a member of Parliament, you are likely to become a minister or a deputy minister. You are likely to be chosen or appointed a minister or
so that's why there's the clamor.
That is the attraction that makes people want to rush to Parliament. But if they knew what is there, that if you are a member of Parliament, this is all you get. I'm not sure most of them will go the way they rushing the way they do. I mean, because I have been there and nothing attracts me of that place, because I think I can do better when I'm on my own than to, because the money I make, I wake up in the morning and my house is full of people with their issues. But they are the last people I see before I go to bed, usually after 10 p.m. So it's a routine, and every day that is what it is. You are at every funeral, you are at every outdooring, you are at every wedding, and at every point in time, churches are calling on you, mosques are calling on you. Somebody is in trouble and they are in your
So it's
home.
always about you doling out cash,
somebody's
monies
wife
you may not
delivered.
even have at every point in time. That's the case.
Sorry?
I'm saying it's almost as if it's always about you doling out cash, monies you may not even necessarily have, just so you can satisfy the constituents.
That's what it is, you see. So, I mean, over the years, Parliament as an institution has tried to create an opportunity for MPs to be able to manage some of these issues.
Some say the you MPs you usually misfire because based on a research by Afrobarometer, it's not so much about the amount of money you give out to people, but it's rather about the infrastructure they see in the various communities, the kind of work you have helped get in the community. So could it be the case that perhaps you were looking at the wrong side and really people may not really think they do demand?
People demand whether you put infrastructure or you don't.
I see.
I mean, once you open your doors to them, they will be there.
I see.
And you dare not shut your doors at them because that will be another whatever for your exit.
Okay.
Another reason for your exit.
Let's hear Doc.
Definitely.
Okay. I wanted us to hear Doc wrap up on the other causes of the attrition and the possible consequences of this attrition and the prescription, how we cure this problem. Doc.
Yeah, quickly. I mean, I mentioned monetization.
Yeah.
That's very dangerous. There's also tension between the functions that MPs are performing. He talked about constituency development.
Yeah.
That's why I listed some agents of development for you. The primary concern must be on those primary development agents. And then we can free the MPs to concentrate on their core mandate, for instance. So there's a tension between what is it that they do in Parliament and what they do in their constituencies. I mean, if you look at it critically, your employers are in the constituency. That's fair and good. They have asked you to come to Accra to legislate and do other things on their behalf. Yet they expect you to see you every now and then. That's very, sometimes very confusing. And so the critical point is that you are going to perform a function for which you have been employed, but at the same time you are required to do some constituency surgeries for which reason people perhaps will judge you on. And that creates problems for them. That's what I'm doing. So there's a need for high level of education on these matters. Why not? I mean, when there's a problem in your constituency, they see you as the key actor who should actually be their main focal person to negotiate on their behalf. That's another issue that we need to look at. The other dimension is the hybrid political system that we have created. The hybrid system says that if you look at Article 78, majority of the ministers must come from Parliament. Yep. And therefore, some people will want to use Parliament as a conduit.
Okay.
You understand? It's like an occupational transit point to becoming, ministers. And once that happens, so you have invested full-time, jobs, 2 full-time jobs in one person.
Yeah.
Naturally, most people gravitate towards their ministerial responsibilities. Parliament then suffers.
Okay.
The other bit of the attrition, as I indicated, is maybe I would say, is that jealousy? Because you have been given a car loan. Maybe you are a school teacher somewhere. 3 months, 6 months into your stewardship as an MP, you've been given a car loan. You have a V8. You go back to the same constituency, and they think that, hey, you made it. So right from the word go, people have started undermining the MP in the constituency.
I see.
And for such individuals, every outdooring, every engagement, every whatever, every social gathering, they are there. And their major message is that the MP is not delivering. And once they do that, you see that, and of course, there's also a function of what is it that the MPs themselves have gone
prescriptions.
To. The prescriptions will be the parties themselves going back into their own manifesto, constitution.
Protecting MPs.
Not necessarily protecting, but having an evaluation system of some sort that will evaluate the MPs in their constituency and in Parliament for them to decide. There's no democracy anywhere that every election the screws gates are open for everybody to contest the MPs. We need to be able to ring fence good quality MPs that will help the institution to develop. That's another matter. We must have a handle on this monetization. If we can legislate on that,
so
it's
there should be a cap. as to how much people can spend.
The campaign period must be properly defined.
Okay.
Now we have an open-ended campaign system,
okay,
which is endemical to our democracy.
Let me take the closing words of Mr. Edwasari, who is also with us by Zoom. Prescriptions. How do we solve this problem, Mr. Edwasari?
Well, I think one of the cures will be to, or the remedies will be to expand the electoral college system.
Okay.
Especially at the level where.
But the NDC has tried it. Still hasn't worked as well as we think it should. The NPP tried something also. It also didn't really work, did it?
Yeah, but I think that is the best way out. Because other than that, for as long as we continue to have this delegate system, we cannot change this monetization, because anybody who comes in, the legislation bit, I agree with Doc, but I'm not sure it will work.
It won't work.
Because if you legislate, people will still pass underground and go and pay the monies.
Kojo Edwasari, former member of parliament for the Adentan constituency. Also, my guest in studio, Dr. Evans Agredako. This time around, he was here in his capacity as Chief Director of the Ministry for Parliamentary Affairs. They have been my guests today on Opposing Views. Unfortunately, Inus Afuseni couldn't join us. I'm told he's stuck in traffic. Really, really sad he couldn't join us. But thank you so much for making time to watch us. Up next is Business Updates with Emmanuel Amea.